Well, joining me in the studio is Vincent J. Russo with another installment of In the Legal Know. And today, Vincent is going to clear up some of the confusion when it comes to trust as part of family planning, family estate planning. All right, so what is the difference between a revocable trust and irrevocable trust?
All right, great question, and there's so much confusion out there. So let's start with what is a trust? A trust is a contract between you and your trustee. And basically what you're doing is you're transferring assets into that trust, and that contract, that agreement, spells out what's going to happen. How are those assets going to be managed? How are they going to be distributed out to the beneficiaries? So that's our starting point. Then it gets more confusing. Revocable versus irrevocable. Revocable trust.
So I pronounced it wrong. Revocable.
Well, it's
I had
like
it wrong
tomato
right
or
from the beginning.
tomato. Tomato
Okay.
or tomato. It makes no difference. But a revocable or revocable trust is a trust that when you set it up, you can change it anytime you want. You control what's in that trust, those assets. You can also be the trustee of your own trust when it's revocable. So basically, it's just another way of holding your assets titling-wise. Instead of it being in your name, it's in the name of the trust. Now, very different than irrevocable. So an irrevocable trust, you're bound by the terms of the contract. So once it's set up, let's say I set up an irrevocable trust, I cannot one day wake up and say, I want to change what that trust says. I want to take all my assets back or do whatever I want. No, you can't do that. You're bound by what the trust says. So revocable or irrevocable, and you can set a trust up while you're alive. It's called a living trust, or when you pass away under your will, which is a testamentary trust. All right, does that help? Or did I confuse you?
No, that helps. So how does someone know which one to use?
All right, great question. And it depends upon your objectives. So the most common trust is a revocable living trust. And people set that up to avoid probate. So when you pass away, if you have assets in your name and you have a will, you have to take that will and submit it to the court for approval and the appointment of an executor. You can avoid that by having a revocable living trust. You put your assets in it while you're alive, and when you pass away, you have a successor trustee named in your trust who steps right in, and you don't have to go to court. So it saves legal fees, court filing fees, and saves time. So with the pandemic, that was a significant challenge because the courts shut down like everything else. And so when you lost a loved one, the assets were frozen and no one could do anything with it. And people may have needed those assets to pay for their living expenses, surviving spouse or family members that were dependent on their loved one. So a revocable living trust avoided that problem for those people.
Can that replace a will?
Yeah, in effect, it's a replacement of a will. But you always, even if you do a revocable living trust, you want to also have a will just in case.
Okay.
That you didn't put your asset in the trust, and if you pass away, you have a will that pours over the asset into the revocable trust. Now, irrevocable is different. People set up irrevocable trusts to save estate taxes, to protect assets against creditors or Medicaid, or bad or undue influences. So depending on the reason that whatever your concern is or your objective will really give you the path for whether you want to go revocable, irrevocable.
And there are different types of irrevocable. I'm going to call it irrevocable.
Yeah, I know. We go back and forth. We go back and forth.
So,
yes.
different types.
Different types. So it's like when I was growing up I love ice cream. How about you?
Oh, of course.
All right. So when I was growing up, there was vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. Now, how many flavors are there? All sorts of great flavors, right?
Yeah.
So same with trusts. Way back when I was growing up, trusts were for the wealthy people, and there were only a couple. Now we have a whole series of different trusts. I call them tools in the toolkit. And so let me highlight three of them quickly. One is a family protection trust. This would be a trust that I leave my assets in trust for, let's say, a loved one. Let's say my children. They could be adult children. And I want to leave them in the most protective way for them. So I can leave it in a trust where it protects it against creditor claims, case they were in a car accident and someone sued them, or a bad marriage, or undue influences. So it works really well for people who say, I want to help my children and my grandchildren, and I want to do it smart. I want to do it in a protective way. The second one is a supplemental needs trust. This is so important for families who have a child with special needs. If you leave those assets to the child with special needs, the child may not be able to manage them because of their disability, and it adversely impacts their eligibility for government benefits. So a supplemental needs trust, the most important trust for parents who have a child with special needs, they can leave their assets in trust for their child, maximize what quality of life for their child in any way that needs to be done, but the assets do not adversely impact their eligibility for government benefits. So that's a terrific trust. And the third one, so these are like my favorite ice cream flavors, the Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. This is where a senior says, I don't want to lose my house if I get sick and I have to go in a nursing home. So they can place their home in a trust, and after 5 years, because there's a 5-year rule, then that house is totally protected and will not be claimed against if they should need Medicaid to pay for long-term care.
Wow, okay. Wow.
Just starting. Those are my top 3.
Just starting. That's your chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry right there.
There you go.
And I think, yeah, a lot of people assume that you have to have a lot of money or big estates to have a trust, but that's not the case.
No, not at all anymore.
Okay.
It's really changed, and these trusts are so powerful because they can really make a difference, not only in your life, but also for your families. It's, for me, family comes first, right?
Right,
my
right.
TV show. And so it's all about families. And people, why do they save assets? And why do they protect them? They protect them so that they make sure they can live, the way they want to, but also when they pass away, they want to leave them a legacy for their families.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Extremely important information. Go to the expert to make sure you do this right. Vincent, thank you so much. You'll be back next week with us again.
Durable powers of attorney.
Oh, yay. Thank you very much.